Hello brothers and sisters, so today I'm just going to do a reading of the first letter that we have that Michael Servetus published in his Restitution of Christianity, his first letter to John Calvin. There were 30 letters that he published altogether that the spectrum of topics ranges from the first 8 relate to theology, the ontology or the nature of God and Christ, and then it goes into justification and the law, the functionality of the law and grace, and there's some other topics like infant baptism, predestination, the nature of hell, what else? I'm trying to think. Christian government, scriptures and the church. So yeah, a lot of interesting topics, and I'll probably make some notes as I go through this letter because it's translated from the Latin. There is a Spanish edition of the 30 letters which I managed to find, but I think it's better to translate from the source text rather than it being a translation of a translation. So I've used Google Translate in some instances, but most of the time I'm just passing out the Latin word by word. So yeah, my hope is that it is a trustworthy translation. I have also polished it up a bit because, you know, as with all translations, it doesn't always comport very well into the English, so you have to sort of they say do a bit of circumlocution, a bit of circling around the saying to get to the heart of it. So anyway, I'll just read it now. So this is letter 1 of 30 letters to John Calvin, preacher of the Genevans. Jesus, that Nazarene, who for the wretched of us was crucified, you confess is called the Son of God by name, but that in reality he is not the Son. You do not believe in the true reason of how this man is the Son of God, in that he is truly begotten or born of the substance of God, but you call him Son by a certain metaphor, whilst in him there is another invisible Son. So Servetus is saying that Calvin calls the man, Jesus, the Son of God, only in a metaphorical sense or a non-literal sense, but that the real Son is the invisible Son of God, which is inside the visible man. You cut God to pieces by a great monster. The true Son you obliterate, and you form new gods. You are clearly deceived by the allegorical saying concerning begotten or born wisdom, which is also said to be created, whereby you can gather from this that it is figurative speech, non-literal speech. Understood as realities or as real occurrences in God, that there was a real begetting of a real Son in God. Understood as realities, not only is God cut to pieces, but also clearly 2 different sons are taught, one without body, incorporeal and invisible, and the other with body, corporeal and visible. This absurdity does not disturb you. You only object that if man is the Word, there will be 2 words, and then why not 2 sons? You distinguish nothing by saying this, as if both terms could be allowed confusedly and without distinction. To remove all absurdity and confusion, I beg you not to abuse the terms. If you serve the proper signification, one term properly signifies word, the other properly signifies son. So these are 2 different words that designate 2 different things. The word is one thing and the son is another thing. The word is, properly speaking, utterance and representation. The Son is substantial generation. In this is the real distinction, and not in your way. This man's son because he was begotten by the utterance of God, is called the Word. And the Word, because it extended to the generation of the Son and referred to the Son, was called Son. The Word was referring to the personal Son. Consider logos, the Word, to be referring reason, and the Son to be begotten out of Mary. If in its proper meaning logos is a referring word, or referring reason, like reasoning that refers to something, or a word that refers to something, and the Son to be begotten out of Mary. So if in its proper meaning logos is referring word or referring reason, who will dare say with you that John is misused or abused? If for some reason it is agreeable to teach two words or two sons, it must be said that one is the figure of the other. And so at last we will be agreed, saying that there was once the person and figure of the Son. So I'll just stop here and say that when Servetus talks about person, he's using it in a very literal Latin or Greek way of speaking, where it means like an appearance or an outward appearance, as even the Bible speaks in this way when it designates person. Sorry, the sun's in my way. Let's just move this over here. So it designates in the Bible, it says, do not be a respecter of men's persons. So it refers to the outward appearance. You don't show respect just because they appear to be rich or they appear to be poor, but you judge according to the heart. Let's just put this back because there's not much I can do about the sun, but it's at least you can see me very clearly, and all the shadows and everything. So anyway, if for some reason it is agreeable to teach two sons, so I've said that. So Servetus is saying that the person or the persona of the Son and a figure, a shape of the Son, pre-existed with God as the Word, but not yet as the real Son. For you, rather, they are said to be two, since both are real, and there is no similarity between one and the other. I say that one was the natural likeness and person of the other. The ancients were in this way speaking properly concerning persona, placing in God the person of the Son, who is one person with man. In the person of Christ it is said that wisdom once was formed, because Christ is true wisdom, who from eternity has his own form in God. But of the real and invisible Son whom you affirm, what formation do you give? It is a diabolical fraud and an impossible monstrosity in God. But notice that with Solomon, the Hebrew term helete does not properly signify generation, but expression and formation, such as it was in the divine mind. So Servetus explains that holid is the term that is usually used for the paternal or the fatherly begetting in the Hebrew scriptures, but halalti only extends to the feminine squeeze when they give birth to a child. So it's referring to a compression, which the ancients spoke is how wisdom is formed in the mind. It's like a essential compression of understanding. In the soul of man is knowledge, the expression of an image, the conception of forms, the figuration of certain things. Therefore, because of that conception in our soul, would that knowledge be called a son? So just because you have an idea of a shape or a word or an animal or anything, a knowledge of something in your mind, is that knowledge then called a son? No, not at all, unless indeed metaphorically. Truly, for better reason, it might be said that in our soul there is true and real generation of that conception than in God, because what has come to our souls from outside is really distinct, but not to God. Wisdom was eternally conceived in God's mind, formed and expressed, the figuration of Christ, and in the figure of Christ shone forth all things, whose future was in him. So I think this is a really important point that Servetus will pick up on later, that in terms of predestination, everything existed in the person of Christ, or in the persona of Christ, or in the figure of Christ, or in the essence of Christ, because it's because of him that all things can exist. It's because of him all things, it's through him that all things can exist, because it's by his blood that reality is given its purpose, or it's the eternal predesign, it's the eternal plan that God has for the world. And he is the Logos, the reason why the world can exist. So you can think more about that, actually. But so this was the divine wisdom, arranging all things to the glory of Christ, and Christ in God. The wisdom in God was not the real Son, but the persona of Christ, the real Son. It was reflections of the future Son, and to the generation of the Son it substantially was extending to. So you could meditate on this bit quite strongly, like, it was reflections of the future Son. So the wisdom of God was a reflection of Jesus Christ in his mind, and to the generation of the Son it substantially was extending to. So the wisdom that God used to form the earth, its substance was extending to the generation of the Son, or to the begetting of the Son, because it was by this wisdom in which he created the world that the world could bring forth the Son in time. So I'm not sure I've hit the nail on the head there, but definitely something to think about. Another similitude or likeness of this you can accept when in the father of a future Peter, semen or seed is substantially produced. In him the Father is now the substance of the Son, not yet the Son himself. In this way was the substance of Christ in God, the eternal origin of his generation, the essential image and persona. There already this man was conceived, expressed, generated, and if you wish, created. I grant to you more than you ask for, only you might understand the Christ as created because he participates in creation. So he's not saying that Christ is a created being, but he's saying that there is a created Christ because Christ comes into the creation. The persona, the essence, the image that exists with God, it takes on flesh in that sense. But when it's saying taking on flesh, it refers to the taking up of the children of Abraham. But even Job says that he was clothed with flesh. So the essence of the man, or the life of the man in God, it wasn't a real man or a real son in God, but it was the substance, it was the potential of the future son. The image, these are all terms that Servetus is using. So I'm still understanding it, so you know, it's something that I'm going to chew on for a while. But if you put forth to yourself Christ as the goal of all scriptures, they will be to you without difficulty. There's the ambulance. The entire mystery of the word was the glorification of this man, just as he himself already was once in God glorious. John 17. I beg you that you will remember this man to be truly begotten of the substance of God, and indeed, for that reason, to be truly the Son of God. Through the word, this man is from eternity begotten, and in the wisdom of the word, the Son was being formed. So there is a begetting of the Son that exists from eternity, but this is not a This is in the mind of God. This is in the heart of God, as it says that he is in the bosom of the Father. Through the Word, this man is from eternity begotten, and in the wisdom of the Word, the Son was being formed. Hence it is called personally begotten wisdom, the personal Son, the one begotten in the bride. And that's probably one of the most, was the most challenging parts of this to translate, but also maybe the most mysterious, that wisdom was called begotten, the woman was called begotten, and in the woman was the personal Son. In this wisdom in God's mind, the Son existed, had his pre-existence in the plan, in the purpose of God, in the logos, in the reasoning of God. And so now the bride is Israel, or the church, and as we see in Revelation, the woman is pregnant with the Son, and then she brings forth the Son in time. So the bride, wisdom, was like the cradle of the Son that carried the Son up to the point of his real birth, and when the Son became substantially generated. There was already shining there essentially the future man with God, on account of whom all things are, and through whom all things are. There was no monster, no cutting to pieces, no dissection, but the eternal glory of the man Jesus Christ, the Son of God, in him from eternity, and in eternity personally and substantially existing. May Jesus Christ be with you, that you may know him well. So, yeah, that's letter 1. Let me just take this down, because I'm so illuminated by the sun right now. But so yeah, so the SUN. So yeah, it's definitely something to consider. And what Servetus, I believe, is really saying is that there wasn't three beings in God. There wasn't three real consciousnesses in God, that three egos, three I ams in God. There wasn't three substances in that sense, three persons in that sense in God, but there was the personality of the Son, and there was the essence of the Son in the Father. Just as a man carries the DNA of his children in his bowels, or in his in whatever you want to say, and he brings them forth in time. He begets them in time. So it says in Hebrews that Levi was in the loins of Abraham. Yeah, the loins is the